I'm standing in front of my home in Scotland. It's been my home for 16, 17 years now, and it was originally a commercial conversion. Okay, so let's talk about the numbers. And by the way, before I do that, welcome to the hallway. You can see the lovely views out into the garden, the fountain, the flag, everything else. So we bought this as a 9-bed care home. We reconfigured it to an 8-bed family home. We bought this property for £450,000. We then went on to spend £120,000 on it, but £60,000, as you'll see as you walk through the house with me, was actually on the kitchen, and it was well worth spending it on the kitchen. So in total, we spent £570,000, something like that. As soon as we'd finished, it was immediately revalued at 1.1 million. What did we then do? We put a mortgage on it of £770,000 because we could. 70% loan to value at 1.1 million. So we took out almost £200,000 more than it had cost us to do this conversion. And that essentially is what we then used to go off and start our property investing business. So this wasn't a flip, it could have been. But if we'd have flipped this property, so let's keep the numbers easy. Let's say we'd have bought it and done it up for £500,000 and then sold it for £1 million and made a £500,000 profit, would have had to pay either income tax or capital gains tax on that £500,000 profit. Now, if we'd have done that, 40% of £500,000 is 200,000. Yeah, say you're a 40% taxpayer, but that's going to kick you into 45% taxpayer territory. So even if you made a profit of £500,000 and you sold it straight away, there are ways that you could manage this, but if you did make that profit and sold it straight away, you get the £500,000, but you're going to lose 200,000 in tax. You only end up with £300,000. So very often, before you go and sell something, make sure you do the numbers if you keep it, because if you just release the extra money as an equity release in a mortgage, very often you can take out the same amount of money tax-free, and you've still got the asset, you've still got the property. The second thing, huge mistake. We'd never heard of capital allowances. So we didn't claim any capital allowances when we converted this care home to a family home. For most people that do commercial conversions into residential and sell them, if you don't claim the capital allowances, bang, gone. You're never getting them. Never, ever getting them. So the essential numbers here are purchase 450, conversion 120, revaluation 1.1 million. Fantastic project. But it could have been £15,000 better just on VAT, and it could have been hundreds of thousands of pounds better at the time had we known about capital allowances. What is a capital allowance? Well, it's an amount of money that you're allowed to earn tax-free. How do you qualify for capital allowances? Buying commercial property. So between exchange and completion, make sure you've got the property insured. Next lesson, the rebuild cost on this property. So the current value of this property, well, it doesn't matter. Let's go with the property value then, when we did the refurb, 2004, was valued at 1.1 million. And the rebuild cost on the house was 1.8 million. So we've got a very hefty insurance premium. But the extra thing that we didn't know, that we hadn't factored in, was the covenants, the deeds. A covenant is a promise within the deed, says we've got to maintain a 6-foot stone wall around the perimeter of the garden. The rebuild cost on that stone wall around the edge of the garden is 1.2 million. The property insurance, not the contents insurance, just the bricks and mortar rebuild cost to insure this property every year is over £3,000. And we had other issues as we went around the house and we started refurbishing it, but rather than stand here and tell you about them now, I'll share them with you as we go around. Okay, so welcome to the lounge. or at least it's a lounge now. What this used to be is one of the residence lounges. We've kept all the original features, the coving, all of the plaster work. We've put back the picture rails. We've got the original parquet flooring here, but when we bought this place, we didn't actually know this was under here. There was two, in fact 3 layers of carpet on top of it. We've got a bay window to the front, and what we had to do, this isn't a listed building, but it's a conservation area. So if you look at these windows, they are sash and case windows, but they're special sash and case windows. They are double glazed and they are UPVC. So why was it so important for us to get UPVC windows in? Simple. The bottom of our garden is the sea. So if you go and put wooden windows in to any property, well, you've got a maintenance nightmare because you've got to paint them. But we regularly get the wind bringing salt into us. So imagine how often we'd have to repaint those things if they're all made of wood. But in this house, we replaced 48 windows. Our total bill installed, not buying them, the total bill, 48 windows was £24,000. So it's always worth making sure that the money you're spending on the property is adding as much value as possible. And I'm going to give you a rule here, a really important rule. If we spend £1, we want to generate £3 of value. Final point on this room, the doors into our main reception areas are enormous. They're 9-foot doors. Because this was a care home, the main doors were all screwed shut. They were backed with asbestos and they were literally screwed shut. Because in a care home, or many properties where you've got to have public access, all of the main reception areas, the residence lounges, had to be accessed through fireproof antechambers. So all of the rooms into our main reception rooms, all of the access into our main reception rooms were coming through secondary doors that were created with fireproof lobbies on. They looked disgusting, and the main doors were screwed shut. Now fortunately for us, they were still here, because sometimes they get bricked up or whatever, removed. So all we had to do was remove the asbestos. Very important point, you shouldn't be doing any work on any property without an asbestos survey. So we had the asbestos survey done, we knew where the asbestos was and what kind of asbestos it was. So we took the appropriate measures, we got the asbestos removed, closed over the secondary doors that had been created into our main rooms, and reopened the main doors. And throughout the property, we've installed mains interlinked smoke detectors. We've got fire detection services. So we've got, as you go through each of our rooms, you'll see they're there. We've also interlinked an intruder system. When you're not here, you've got that security and peace of mind. If you've got the house in bits, to wire in mains interlinked smoke detection, or in the kitchen we've actually got heat detection, because you don't want it getting set off because somebody's burnt toast or something, and a burglar alarm and intruder system. Now all of that is remotely monitored. So this room was the original dining room in the house. It's quite a long way from the kitchen, so we've chosen to relocate the dining room to the back of the house. So this is a big public reception room. As with all the other rooms, we've maintained all the plaster work, put back picture rails, rebuilt the original skirting boards where we needed to. And this is one of the very few fireplaces in the house that's actually original. Coming off this room, as well as going back that way to the hall, going through here, we've got what the previous owners called a garden room. So it's kind of a conservatory. What we've done with that is we've tiled it, we've put in underfloor heating, and then we've put a nice big jacuzzi in there for 6 people, which the kids, well, we love it as well, never mind the kids. So it's a very nice addition to a family home. Okay, so very briefly, here's the jacuzzi room that I talked about. You can see it's very light, we're completely surrounded by glass. Um, here's the jacuzzi. It's been there for, well, 17 years I think now. So it's this jacuzzi is actually older than 2 of my children. That tells you how old it is, but it still gets very regular use. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this room. On to the next room. Welcome to my room. This is my study. Love this little study. It's got my favourite chair in it. Do a lot of reading and writing in here. Got my desk. Got a cute little fireplace in the corner. I think we've got 18 fireplaces in the house. So in some of them, we've kept them open. Like this one is open. This is actually a Rennie Mackintosh fireplace. Charles Rennie Mackintosh is a big thing in Scotland. It's a big thing, particularly in this area of Scotland. We've got a World Heritage Site in the local village. It's called Hill House. So little features consistent with the local area, giving some history, some heritage to the house, to the property. But actually, when we moved in here, it just shows the importance of having an open mind. This room was completely out of place for the rest of the house. This was actually a utility room. All right, let's keep going. This room gets really well used. This room was originally the kitchen. The ceiling in here is comparatively low compared to the rest of the main house, because here is where the servants would have worked. Annika and myself really love the light in this room because again it's a dual aspect. We've got window to the side, we've got main windows to the front of the dining room looking out onto our side gate, so we're very fortunate that this big detached house is plonked in the middle of the plot and we've got garden on 4 sides. The kitchen is one of the most important rooms in any property, and we actually made a lot of modifications to this kitchen. Physically, when we moved in, there was I haven't just got shorter, we've changed the floor levels in here. So we've got a couple of steps in here. There was a big, massive Formica. It was gorgeous, it was bright orange, if you can imagine that. So there was a worktop that came all the way up to about here from the door over there. And the kitchen was, I'm going to say 1960s. The wall was decorated with, wait for it, Hessian wallpaper. How about that? Absolutely horrible. The kitchen itself is a Clive Christian kitchen. And for anybody that knows anything about kitchens, believe it or not, forget the actual the cooker and the dishwasher and the fridge freezer and everything else. Just the kitchen, the carcasses and the worktops were £60,000. Now you might be thinking, Jesus Christ, spending £60,000 on a kitchen. But if you've got £1 million plus house and you don't have this kind of quality of fixtures and fittings, you're going to be jeopardising the value of your house. Underneath the floor here was one of the major pieces of, I guess this was about the only nasty surprise that we got. This house is actually built on rock, on granite, and at the back of the house to the front of the house there's about a 5-foot fall. So the ground actually falls away from the back to the front of the house. So at the front of the house we don't have a cellar, but under the floors, because we've got suspended timber floors throughout the house, I can't stand up, but there's about 4'6" of head height. At the back of the house, there's only about 18 inches. Under the floor here, over the years, there'd been water running in from an underground stream, and it had completely rotted and perished all of the wood in the kitchen. So that was about the only nasty surprise we had. When we were taking the kitchen out, the old kitchen out, we noticed all the floor levels were sagging. So we had to put more than 10 tons of waterproof cement under this floor before we could start building again. And we had to divert the underground stream off outside. You know, if we'd have just put 10 tons of cement under the floor here, what would the water have done? It would have found its way round it, and the overwhelming likelihood is that it would just have started rotting some other part of the house. Hope you like the kitchen. We do, and we spend a lot of time here. Let's go have a look upstairs. So So here we are on the first floor landing. You can see we've carried on the black and white tiling throughout, and you'll see it again on the second floor landing. And many people comment on that, and it's not actually original. We put it in. We've matched it to the balustrade. Let's go and have a look at one of the bedrooms. So, welcome to one of the bedrooms. And again, you can see how tall the ceilings are. And as all the other rooms, we've maintained the original features. You might have noticed that in many of our rooms, we don't have any curtains. And you might think that's a bit weird. Why haven't they got any curtains? Well, the reason we haven't got any curtains is because West Coast Scottish properties of this age have got shutters, but they're internal shutters. So we've put all we've brought back into use all of the internal shutters. So they all work like this. And if I was to close them both over, they'd go, well, I will close them both over so you can see how dark it gets. So that is why we don't have any curtains. Now you probably can't see me anymore. This shutter we had to refurbish, but you see this piece of black tape here? This is actually blackout fabric from the Second World War that we've left there. So during the Second World War, we are, or just out here, you can see the views that we've got. We've got the Clyde, and close to 50% of the shipping for the world was actually manufactured on the Clyde, the Clyde estuary, which meant that during the Second World War, the Clyde was a major target for the Luftwaffe. And this house, and because Glasgow was bombed a lot during the Second World War, this house was actually used during the Second World War as an evacuation point for children. So during the Second World War, this house was home to 138 children. And apparently just this room used to have bunk beds in it, if you can imagine, 4 high bunk beds in here. So just this room had more than 20 children sleeping in it during World War II. Okay, so let's go on up to the second floor, really just to show you how low the ceilings are compared to down here, because that's where the servants would have been. Hey, welcome to the second floor, and you can probably see what I was talking about with the doors. So while I'm standing still, it's okay, but while I'm walking, I'm going up and down, I would crack my head. And I'm not super tall, I'm 6 foot tall, which is kind of pretty normal for adult males these days. Anyway, there we are, the tour of the house is complete, and what I'm going to say to you in terms of a closing comment is, if you think that commercial conversions are interesting, if you want to explore the opportunity to make a lot of money from purchasing something that is not currently residential. So it could be, like this house was, a care home business. It could be a bed and breakfast. It could be a small hotel that's closed down. It could be some offices. It could be an old council building. It could be anything, and we've done most of those. So take a commercial building that is not being used for what it was built for anymore and turn it into a house or some flats. That's a commercial conversion. You're converting a commercial property into a residential property of much higher value. As always, you've been wonderful. I've been Paul. See you next time.